Yes, we are finally here, ladies and gentlemen. Covering this installment is the reason I started this whole series talking about the Macross series. Macross Frontier cemented my adoration for the franchise, and not only is it my all-time favorite entry, but it is, in my not-so-humble opinion, the best entry in the franchise hands down. It was directed by Shoji Kawamori and Yasuhito Kikuchi. Every single episode was written by Hiroyuki Yoshino, boy, that's no small feat, from a series concept by Kawamori. Kawamori provided the Valkyrie designs, while the other mechanical designs were done by Junya Ishigaki and Takeshi Takakura. Returning to compose the music is Yoko Kanno, who previously worked on Macross Plus. This series was a 25th anniversary project for the franchise and ran from April to September 2008. It is a series that is considered great primarily amongst only those who really know what this franchise is. And it's not often you find someone who enjoys it as much as you do, but when you do, it's mostly on the internet. Seriously, have you met anybody in the flesh that loves it as much as you do, or as I do? I personally haven't. I can also safely say that I haven't loved an installment quite this way since Do You Remember Love. Let's not waste any time, let's get right into it. We open in the year 2059, where we see one of the music idols of the series, the Galaxy Fairy Cheryl Nome, making the final approach to Macross Frontier. Frontier is like Macross 7, only much cooler. Frontier is exploring the galaxy very much like Seven and other huge migratory fleets to inhabit new worlds after what happened to Earth in the year 2012 and to avoid extinction. It has residential, agricultural, resort, entertainment, and factory areas. Frontier, like other fleets, recycles water, air, and other stuff with minimal waste. And all of this in order to make the journey to the center of the galaxy.
最小限の補給で長距離の航行を成し得る閉鎖系として設計されている。それはいわば小さな地球であった。
We cut to our primary protagonist, Alto Saotome. Together, he is practicing maneuvers for the upcoming Cheryl Nome concert with his friends Michelle, the shameless ladies man,
ミス・シェリル。
違うわよ、私。
あなたの後ろ姿があまりにも魅力的だったもので。
やだ。
どういう心臓してるんだろう。
or is he called Michael or Mikhail? Hold on a second. The version of the subtitles I have fluctuates between Michelle or Michael, and Alto even calls him Mikhail at many times. I'm assuming Alto calls Michelle that to mock him because he calls him this.
俺なら5回は回れるな。たかがコンサートの余興だぜ。俺ならできる。相変わらず自信家だね。アルト姫は今なんて言った？怒った顔がまた素敵。やっと
また始まっちゃった。
More on that later. And he's called Michel Blanc in other places, but in the Volume 4 Blu-ray booklet I have, the katakana reads Mihairu, as in Mikhail, and you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna call him Michael. If this series or the subtitles I have won't make up its mind as to what to refer to him definitively, then I will. Anyway, back to the show. Alto also practices with Luca Angeloni, who, as we'll see later, is a bit of a whiz kid of sorts. We are also introduced to Ranka Lee, working her part-time job at Nyan Nyan. You know, the restaurant that Lin Min Mei made famous, and she just got tickets to the Cheryl Nome concert. At the concert hall, preparations are underway, and the first impression we get of Cheryl is that she's a bit of a bitch.
ファンを裏に入れるのをやめてって言ったはずよ。オープニングのアクロバット飛行をする学生たちです。邪魔しないよう控えて飛ぶように言っておいて。もっともファンには私以外目に入らないでしょうけど。何が銀河の妖精よ。小悪魔の間違いじゃないの？
更衣室もない上にプログラムに口まで出してきて。
クライアントのご要望なんだから。
Ranka gets lost on her way to the concert and she encounters Alto changing. Yeah, Alto's look isn't just an aesthetic choice, and it's part of the plot. More on that later.
道に迷っちゃって、木の上から見下ろせばわかるかなって。
なんとかと煙は高いところに登るってか。
ひどい。ありがとね。案内してくれ。
But there is danger lurking about. A mysterious alien menace is approaching Frontier. The UN sends out recon units, and of course they get destroyed. The concert begins and it rocks.
私の歌を聴け。重力反比例火山みたいに光るフィン。君飛び越えろ。
Now, I enjoyed the concert scenes in the better Macross installments, and especially the ending battle of Do You Remember Love, but in this series, with the combination of visuals and the music of Yoko Kanno, this is really the first time that I was permanently able to embrace the music concert parts of the franchise. I always enjoyed it from SDF Macross, Do You Remember Love, and Macross Plus. 2 and 7 were pretty flaccid as far as I'm concerned, and there really weren't any in 0. And I have to admit, I had some reservation as to how far this aspect could go and how it could improve, but it just blew me away here. By the way, Cheryl Nome right here was voted the #1 Macross character in that televised Macross big voting thing in Japan, ahead of such characters as Roy and Hikaru and others. Hey, that's fine by me. At least it's not Basra who came in at #2. Yeah, he's definitely a Alright, she's actually a really good character on her own terms, as we'll see later, but I have a good idea as to how she got to the top.
But she's a woman.
Yeah, I know.
But she's hot.
If given the time and opportunity and more exposure in pop culture at large, I'm certain Cheryl can sell more body pillows than Tifa Lockhart. I'm certain Cheryl can sell more body pillows than Tifa Lockhart and Hatsune Miku. Alto screws up a maneuver and ends up having to catch Cheryl, and what could have been a total flub, they make it work.
前期2番機フォロー
The enemy aliens, which are called the Vajira, are making their approach as the UN look like total pussies against them, and thus a private military company called the SMS is called in to help. Basically, they're much cooler than the regular army, they have better equipment and better guns, and are better able to handle the Vajira.
新統合軍機、この追記は我々が引き継ぐ。了解。腰抜けどもに戦える相手じゃない。
Among them is Azuma Lee, who is Ranka's older brother, and one who does not want Ranka to know that he's still flying about. More on why later. But even with SMS tech, the Vajira are still breaking through. The concert is cancelled and evac orders are given. Michael and Luca leave after receiving orders, and yeah, they're with the SMS too. That's just obvious.
パープル、バーミリオン正体解決。
最終防衛ライン突破されました。
アイランド1に取り憑かれます。
Azuma's buddy Gilliam, who I will call Redshirt for the time being, gives chase to a Vajira who has just infiltrated the ship. I love this portion of the episode here where it kind of turns into a kaiju movie, even complete with tanks trying to shoot it and completely failing. While observing the chaos, Alto gets shot down and Redshirt gets reduced to a gnarly crimson puddle trying to fight off the Vajira. Azuma arrives on the scene and sees that Ranka is in danger. You know, I gotta say, she's lucky that none of those gigantic bullet casings are hitting her, otherwise she would meet the same fate as that poor woman in Mobile Suit Gundam F91. All of this chaos causes Ranka's repressed memories to spring forth, or at least some of them.
何なんだよこの化け物は。なんで。
心しろと。事情は後だ。すぐにその娘を連れて逃げろ。
キャリ捕まってろ。
The roof is blown out by the enemy, which threatens to carry Ranka away, but thankfully Alto catches her before she meets a terrible fate. Also, this is a throwback to when Hikaru caught Min-Mei in the original series.
お兄ちゃん、お兄ちゃん。
あ
あれがバジラなんですね。
On the whole, she seems to be okay.
鼓膜も破れてなくて。
私、一応ゼントランとのクォーターだからね。
見かけによらずタフなわけだ。
For some reason, Alto goes to Gilliam's death scene and vomits. Okay. The next day, Alto is taken into custody by the military, specifically Kathy Glass, who is not only the one escorting Cheryl Nome around earlier, she is also Frontier President Howard Glass's daughter, and is a former flame of Azuma. He's initially in trouble for piloting military equipment, and she looks to recruit him. But
そいつの壊した VF25 は俺たち SMS の管理下にある機体だからな。だろう？キャサリン・グラス注意。
On the way to SMS, we hear Firebomber in the background. Holy crap. He has bad taste. At SMS, Alto is expected to answer for Gilliam's death and describe how the comrades died. You see, the SMS are not officially part of the military and are not given military funerals and are not buried in the graveyards and so forth. So they take the death of a comrade very seriously and they have to find other ways to do memorials.
カナリアさん、なんですこの騒ぎ。
連れてきたオズマがギリアムの見届け人。
アルト？ミハエル、ルカ？
However, Avajita was hidden in the wreckage and a sortie order is sent out.
俺をバルキリーに乗せろ。
ノリでほざいてんじゃねえ！ガキが！こいつを安全区域に放り出せ！
Meanwhile, Cheryl is in panic mode over a lost earring and suspects that Alto has it.
立ち入り禁止？そんなの無意味よ。297どこなのよ。もう分かりにくい。ちょっとそこのあなた。はい。
Ranka ends up fangirling about Cheryl to Cheryl, and Ranka doesn't know it. Eventually, Ranka gets caught up in the moment of seeing Valkyrie's leave, sings one of Cheryl's songs, and Cheryl provides some fan service. Huh, she's not that much of a bitch after all.
神様に恋をしてた頃、もう二度と触れられないなら。こんなサービスめったにしないんだからね。昨日のお姫様見つけたわ。早乙女アルト。
The SMS works hard to take care of the Vajra near the ship, but not only does Azuma get hurt in the process, but the glass protecting the part of the ship that Alto and company are at is severely damaged by the Vajra and starts to depressurize. And so they have to rush to an emergency shelter.
ここは非常用の退避壕だ。ドーム内には通じてない。
ちょっと、それって閉じ込められたってこと
？Eventually, the chaos outside causes the life support systems to quit, and after some serious talks as to what to do,
赤やめろ！外は真空だぞ！
なら諦めて窒息するまで待てっての？みんなは私を幸運だって言うわ。でも、それに見合う努力はしてきたつもりよ。だから私はシェリルノームでいられるの。
they are all eventually found by Grace and Kathy.
さっき見たことは忘れるのよ。そうね。でもただの記憶として、今夜一晩使うくらいは許してあげる。
One thing that people have to understand about Cheryl is that she's a massive tease, and she seems to like teasing Alto quite a bit. What she's referring to right here is that in the shelter there was some turbulence that happened, and her tube top fell down. And, well, this happened.
私の生で見たのよ。
抜かせ！だいたいステージとかでいろいろ見せてんだろ。
それとプライベートは別なの。いやらしい目で見ないでよ、この変態。
But she also gives some good advice to Ranka.
あなた、歌うのは好き？はい。なら素直になりなさい。チャンスは目の前にあるものよ。こんなサービスめったにしないんだから。
Azuma passes out during flight, and on the way back, Ranka sees him in his injured state, and she doesn't take it well at all.
お兄ちゃん、パイロットはやめたって。もう絶対私を一人に危ないことしないって言ってたのに。どうしてそんなことするの？
Yeah, what's up with her? Well, she's a kind of adopted sibling of Azuma, and, well, why don't you let him fill us in?
ランカは親しい人間の死や怪我に対して異常なまでに反応するんだ。
ディソシエイティブアムネジア、乖離性健忘、外傷後ストレス障害等をきっかけに特定の体験の追想が不可能になる。その体験を想起させうる要因によって強い不快感や恐怖感を引き起こす。
つまりは一種の記憶障害さ。ランカは昔肉親を全て失ってるんだ。俺はランカの本当の兄じゃない。11年前あの子の家族を守れなかった無能なパイロットさ。ランカはそのことを忘れている。あの忌まわしき事件を。
Alto is given 24 hours to think about if he wants to join SMS, but if he joins, there is no turning back. We also have kind of a shady character working as a President's aide named Leon, and he and Kathy are pretty comfy together. Somewhat. While thinking about all kinds of stuff and generally moping, Alto overhears Ranka singing one of the great songs of this series, Aimo. This is her only childhood memory.
々この丘に歌いに来るの。ここなら誰も聞いてないから。私あそこに閉じ込められた時すごく怖かった。このまま誰にも知られないで何もできないで死んじゃうんだって。私はここにいるよって、それをできるだけたくさんの人に伝えられたらなって、そう思うようになって。
They both make up their minds to do whatever they want, and Alto joins SMS, but is told of the cost by Ozuma at Gilliam's funeral.
民間軍事プロバイダーである俺たちの死は戦死じゃない、自己死扱いだ。戦弾を上げての葬儀もなく、身内にすら詳細な事実が伝えられることはない。
おあつらえ向きさ。
Alto begins training, and Michael really puts him through the ringer. Ranka officially enters the Miss Macross competition and already feels out of place. Regarding the competition, Kathy is one of the judges, as well as Cheryl and even Alto's father, Ronzo Saltome. Yeah, okay, I think it's about time to talk about Alto's family. He comes from a family of kabuki players, and his father is very angry at him for walking away from it to become a pilot. Alto, due to his feminine appearance, played female roles in kabuki performances. He doesn't like being teased about it by Michael or others, and he doesn't like the whole part of his theatrical training being brought up.
アルト先輩も落ち着いてますよね。やっぱりお家があだとこういう雰囲気には慣れっこだ。
今度言ったら。
Unless he does it himself, as you'll see later. The whole reason he became a pilot? Well, he feels trapped and even cramped, shall we say, on Frontier, as he spent most of, if not his entire life, traveling on it, and wants the freedom of flight, and more than anything, he wants to travel under a real sky, and he'll get his chance. Alto promised to see Ranka perform, but he's called away for his final test. The test is a mock combat with Meltrandi units in an early Zentradi battleground. While the training goes on, Ranka performs My Boyfriend is a Pilot. During the whole thing, the Vajra actually show up in the simulation. Clan, a Zentradi warrior working for the SMS, orders Alto to retreat, but he manages to help her out with a very old Zentradi rifle to kill the Vajra.
あんな骨董品が無事使えたからいいものの、
ゼントラーディの武器は優秀だ。何千年経とうがつまらん動作不良など絶対に起こさん。
どうだ。
バカだし無謀だがセンスは悪くない。
協力感謝だ。クランクラン。
The competition went on, and of course Ranka doesn't win, but at least she tried. Clan eventually shows up in her Myclone state, and something's a little off.
マイクロン化するとタイはなぜかこうなっちゃうんです。
遺伝子が不器用なんだよ。
私よりちょっと背丈が伸びたからといい気に乗り落ち。
A little later, we see Cheryl catch up with Alto on the street, as she still wants her earring back. Ozma is very displeased with Ranka being part of the Miss Macross competition, as it got her suspended from school. While arguing with her, he says something to her that he probably shouldn't have.
私は歌手になりたいの。
お前みたいな引っ込み思案が歌手なんかできっこない。
お兄ちゃんのバカ。
Ozma makes Michael run after her and try to talk some sense into her. Now, Ozma can't do it as he's called away to a very important government meeting with Kathy.
相変わらずね。私のこともそのくらい気にかけてくれていたら。
終わったことだろう。
そうよね。
Meanwhile, Alto and Cheryl look for the earring, which she wants to get back before she returns to Macross Galaxy. But it's proving to be quite difficult.
担当が非番らしい。
何を任せろって言うから。貸しなさい。その遺失物だか遺品だかの担当には私が話す。
That is one thing I do kind of admire about Cheryl. Like in this instance and in the instance in the shelter, she is the kind of person where she does want to do certain things herself and doesn't wait for others to do it for her. Now, if done differently, this trait could have been annoying, but it's actually strangely endearing, especially when she plays off of Alto.
明日には出社してくるから俺が調べる。
じゃあこれは型に預かっておくわね。
返せ。
じゃあ取れば。
卑怯だぞ。
In the meantime, they go touring around Frontier where they get to know each other better, and she begins to like Frontier quite a bit. We learn that her manager, Grace, has cybernetic implants, and thanks to her visual record, that's how they found out that the earring was lost. This is the most San Francisco-looking spaceship city I've ever seen, by the way.
そういや、そっちは整形とかサイボーグも
全部生まれたままよ。それも売りの一つだもの。街は綺麗でスラムもないし、結構いいところね。フロンティアって。ギャラクシーは密閉式のケミカルプラントだから、ツアーで他のバイオプラント船に行った時はオフなんてみじんも取れなかったし。あなたすごくムカつくけど気に入ってるところが一つだけあるわ。私を シェリル扱いしないところ。
They go to a Zentradi cattle farm and even go to a Zentradi mall. Boy, that's a sight. Meanwhile, at the government meeting, we learn more about the Vajra and that they were discovered 19 years previous to the events of the show.
俺たちが仕留めた死骸をこんなところに隠して解剖していたとはな。
単体でホールド可能であり、ミサイル用の物体を個体内で全時生産し続ける。いや、ほぼ存在しないと言っていい。自ら思考する必要がないほど過当な生物か、もしくは何者かによって操られているものと推定されます。
Meanwhile, at the same mall that Alto and Cheryl are at, Michael tries to talk some sense into Ranka that she needs to actually let go of any kind of timidity that she has and just sing anytime and anywhere if she actually wants to go anywhere with it.
人前で歌うことなんかできるわけ？
できるよ。ミスマクロスの時だってちゃんとみんなの前で。
あの時はね。でも例えば今ここで歌える？誰も君を見ようと見るために来てないこの場所で入り口で歌ってた人がいたよね。ランカちゃんも完全スルーしてたけど、ああいう時でも歌い続ける覚悟って君にあるの？
It takes her a little bit, but upon seeing a paper airplane that makes her think of Alto, which he actually did let loose at the mall, she sings and wows everyone.
ハンドルギュッと握ってもスタンバイ。ぶっ飛んじゃってるラップなら for me Beautiful excuse me 欲したらこの声
出てくる子は勝手に出てくるものよ。勝手にね。
It even gets a reaction from the supposedly brain-dead Vajra. That's suspicious. We did see some things like that earlier on in the show, though.
飛び越えろ腹ペコなの。
I wonder what all that could mean. Anyway, at the mall, a talent scout finds Ranka and wants to sign her on. Before the day is through, Ranka ends up seeing Alto and Cheryl get a little intimate, shall we say.
これで心置きなくギャラクシーに戻れるわ。
イヤリング必ず探して持ってってやるよ。
待ってるわ、アルト。
こちらマクロスギャラクシー所属ヴィラン隊地球救援を請う。
The talent scout works to convince Ozma to let Ranka be a singer, and despite the initial cold reception, Ozma lets her do it. Preparations for Cheryl's goodbye concert is underway, but Grace gets the bad news.
彼女へのプレゼントか？いやー、お見それしましたよ、アルト先生。
あれは一方的に引き回されただけで、デートでもなんでもない。
キスまでされたのに？
Ranka lets everybody know that she has signed on with a company called Vector Promotion, and her fan club is officially formed, with those at the table being the first members.
一番に知らせようと思ったの。邪魔しちゃったらとか、うるさくしたらダメかなって。
なに今さら遠慮してんだよ。実は俺もあの時ゼントラのモールにいたんだ。
買い物とか？
そんなとこだ。
一人で？
ああ。
Yeah, although Alto, Ranka, and Cheryl make up the love triangle for this series, this right here is really one of the first indications we get that Alto mostly sees Ranka as a kind of little sister.
これ、シェリルさんの。
別に誘ってるわけじゃないからな。祝いだ、スカウトの。
ありがとう。
But there isn't any time for that kind of drama. President Glass announces that Macross Galaxy has fallen under attack by the Vajra and makes it all public. Macross Galaxy is another fleet, but it's quite different from the others. It appeared to have had the backing of many large corporations, and one of its primary purposes was to develop a lot of new technology, such as cybernetics and other such things. The SMS is ordered to depart very soon on a rescue mission, and SMS is now under military orders.
生命が死刑役を結ぶ政府が戦争もしくはそれに準ずる状態となった場合、命令拒否権および期間終了までの脱退の自由を喪失する。
Cheryl holds a press conference on her own, determined to continue with her concert and to get home to Galaxy, hoping it's okay.
ライブはやるわ。そして私はギャラクシーに帰る。
Before he heads out, Alto goes to return the earring, and he and Cheryl have another chat.
律儀なのね、意外と。
まあな。
それはね、私のお守り、母の形見なの。それ以外顔も知らないけどね。あなたこの船は好き？
嫌いだ。俺は都市宇宙船そのものが嫌だな。ここには空がない。
らしい答えね。ギャラクシーが嫌いだったわ。身寄りのない私が暮らすにはあの船は最低だった。
お前にそんな塩らしい顔されると反応に困る。
何よ、偉そうに。
Alto is told that some surviving vessels from Galaxy are appearing through fold faults and bringing a lot of Vegeta with them, and he needs to return immediately.
借りとくぜ、お前の幸運。
貸すだけだからね。必ず返しに来るのよ。いいわね、アルト。
At the beginning of the episode, the narrator talks about the method of travel in the Macross series called the Space Fold. Since the beginning of the franchise, it's more or less a method of super fast space travel across the galaxy. I won't really get into the technical stuff as I don't feel equipped to do so, but given the name Space Fold, I always assumed it worked in the same way or at least in a similar way in something like Dune, or as Dr. Weir puts it in Event Horizon.
Attractive piece of paper represents space-time, and you want to get from point A here, point B there. The shortest distance between 2 points is 0. It folds space so that point A and point B coexist in the same space and time. When the spacecraft passes through the gateway, space returns to normal.
In Macross, there appear to be dangers in space travel called fold faults, which interfere with three-dimensional space, making travel very dangerous and seem to cause time delays.
フォールド断層と呼ばれる障害の存在や距離に伴う幾何級数的なエネルギー消費の増加が大きな壁として立ちはだかったのだ。
They even mentioned at Cheryl's press conference that the clip of Galaxy signaling help was from 5 days previous, due to the fold faults. Right now I'm hurting my head trying to explain this, I'll come back to it later. Or at least I'll come back to it as it is important to the story. Anyway, the SMS Macross Quarter launches to provide aid to the surviving Galaxy ships, and Kathy is ordered to come along and observe. You know, because orders from the top.
一級の管制免許をお持ちだそうですな、グラス注意。
1300時間の実務経験もあります。
ではキャシー、早速だが働いてもらうことになった。
Oh, before we go any further, let me introduce you to those who work on the bridge of the SMS Macross Quarter. Now, they may not be the most developed characters in the show, but it does help to know at least who they are, as they do show up from time to time, especially in latter portions of the show. First, we have Captain Jeffrey Wilder, who, despite his gruff appearance, cares about his subordinates, and, despite his initial reluctance, grows to like Kathy as well. We also have Bobby Margo, the pilot. Don't let his flamboyant nature fool you. When the going gets tough, he gets going, and he's a pretty kick-ass pilot in his own right, as we will see in this episode. We also have Frontier's version of the three bridge girls. First, we have Monica Lang, who has a crush on the captain, so much so that she doesn't mind when the captain does this.
はい、艦長。セクハラだよね、あれ。本人が喜んでるからいいんじゃないですか？
And remember, nothing says good job like a firm open palm slap on the behind.
There's also Ram Hoa and Mina Roshan. Got all that? Okay, let's move on. Cheryl's concert goes on as planned and the battle commences. SMS is under orders to conduct rescue of the surviving vessels and to collect data. It seems to be going well at first, and Grace even has a feed of the battle and shares it with Cheryl. Weird. But more Vegeta appear from the fold faults and destroy one of the surviving vessels. Luca, who I mentioned before is a whiz kid of sorts in the SMS. His job is to use the latest tech to, you could say, wage electronic warfare against the enemy. He uses drones and observation equipment to gather data. Since he is the heir of the LAI Electronics Corporation, which provides tech for the UN fleet, he gets a kind of leg up and gets to use the cool stuff first. He also has a crush on Ranka's best friend Nanase. Luca gets too close to a Vegeta vessel and gets captured.
ビーム発信機。いや、こんなフォールドエネルギー反応はまさかフォールドリアクター。
ルカが敵に食われた。違う。あの船がルカを捕獲して飲み込みやがった。
Before the last song at the concert, Cheryl gets a touch emotional. Ranka reacts to this, and they seem to have a sort of connection even though they're quite far apart in the concert hall.
この最後の曲だけはある人のために、ある人たちのために歌いたいの。今遠いところで命をかけている人たちのために。
シェリルさん知ってて、それでも。
そしてあなたにも一緒に歌ってほしいの。
絶望からの私たちの前にはただ風が吹いてたね。
Alto goes to rescue Luca, infiltrates the ship, and sees a bunch of dead Vegeta along the way. That's definitely a clue that somebody else is there. And there is, a mysterious Valkyrie that's there to collect data. Alto makes his way to Luca, but he's quickly overwhelmed by the Vegeta. He then hears the voices of Ranka and Cheryl beginning to resonate from the earring. which even the mystery pilot observing all the action overhears. This will make more sense later. The singing gets Alto motivated. He abandons his Valkyrie and gets Luca free and manages to get out before Bobby blows the ship straight to hell.
本艦はこれよりアジア空母艦との近接格闘戦に入る。
本艦はこれよりトランスフォーメーションを開始します。
おい、このクォーターがなぜ400メートル級でありながらマクロスの名を冠されているのか。
スカブ3脱出確認。マクロスキャノンエネルギーチャージ。
ゴージャー。
One of the surviving ships is rescued, but Galaxy's fate is still up in the air. Picking up with the 8th episode, Ranka starts her music career, and it's promoting carrots among Zentradi. It goes as well as one would expect.
たとえ世界が辛くても夢があるでしょ、いろいろと深瀬エンジンないのいいんじゃない夏や。
No, it's actually not all bad for Ranka. She gets admitted to Alto school, which doesn't delight Alto all that much. And guess what? So does Cheryl, much to the delight of every male there, except Alto. Well, she can't go back to Galaxy, so what else is she gonna do? Oh wait, try to fly, of course.
地元学生との交流だと？
ちゃんと学校側の許可はもらってるわ。あなたもこの学校に転入したばっかりだったなんて、一緒にこの奴隷くんに案内してもらいましょう。俺も奴隷に。姫？
たらー。いい加減にしろ。誰が奴隷だ？
ご不満？私の大事なイヤリング、宇宙でなくしておいて。
Now this is an episode where Alto and Cheryl's relationship gets explored a little bit further, and of course it shows the growing feeling that Ranka won't be able to get closer to Alto.
どうもお前、シェリルの人気見くびってる気がするけどね。そもそもなんでお前にばっか絡んでくるのか考えたことはあるのか？俺が手近で脅しやすかったからだろ。ガキめ。
Oh, and there's a cute little worm thing that follows Ranka around. We'll get back to that in a second. Kathy talks to Leon about the crew from the ship that they rescued during the last battle. They left Galaxy very shortly after the Vajra attack, and again, Galaxy's whereabouts are still unknown. By the way, Leon and Kathy are engaged. I forgot to mention that in part 1.
ほらよ、催促されたレポート。
提出期限はとっくに過ぎています。
お前も相変わらず小言が多いな。孤児は増えたんじゃないか？
何よ。
There are some shenanigans that ensue, like the little worm I mentioned earlier. Its name is Aikun, because that's what Ranka decides to call it. Why do all these shows have these little cute creatures? Do they seem to be another way to do cats in anime? Seriously, do something else. At least Oshi uses dogs, basset hounds in his case, and...
Any dog under 50 pounds is a cat, and cats are pointless.
Wait a minute, what was I talking about? Yeah, Aikun runs off with Cheryl's underwear after her shower, and of course a merry chase begins. It culminates with Cheryl using an exoskeleton to jump up and grab it, and is thankfully caught by Alto before she falls to her death. But poor Luca has to clean up after all of his machines. He even gives them names.
ごめんよ、サムソン。行くよ、ヨハネ。
Anyway, Cheryl and Alto enjoy the scenery together.
無茶しやがって。たく、たかが布切れ一枚のために大騒ぎしやがって。
だって下着なのよ。ねえアルト、もう少し飛んでてくれない？イヤリングのこと許してあげる。
Getting back to Ranka for a second, she gets passed up on a TV special in favor of Cheryl, poor girl, and Leon is having her watched. Weird.
他には漏れていないな。
データはすべて接収済みです。ランカリーの件ですが、少々手を回しておきました。
そんなこともお願いしてたね。
継続して監視しますか？
少し気になる娘なんだ。
So she decides to go to that special place on the hill, gets more acquainted with Aikun, and encounters Mr. Harmonica. His name is Beretta Stern. We'll see more of him later. In the following episode, there are times when Cheryl takes time out of the boys' training schedule to film a documentary, and we see Grace spy on a meeting between the president and his cabinet.
バジュラの巣だと。この付近の中域に小規模な巣。 もしくは前進基地が存在するのではないか。
度重なる戦闘で各種資源 特に水の供給が不安定になっている。
急防をもたらしているのもバジラです。
フロンティアのみならず全人類の脅威。我々はもっと彼らを知らなければならない。
This next episode is primarily about Michael. If you haven't guessed already, and if I haven't, made it clear during this narration, his job in the SMS is a sniper. During a recent mission against a Vajira, Michael nearly took out Alto trying to snipe a Vajira, and it was an incident that brings them to blows.
フレンドリーファイヤーなんて冗談じゃないぜ。俺を殺す気かよ。
ミスは誰にでもありますよ。
それにこいつはミスなんてしない。狙撃のセンスは兄貴譲りって自慢してたんだからな。誤射も血筋か。てめえご自慢の狙撃センスもミスしてるやつはないぜ。んだと
Nearly killing a comrade like this is, for Michael, a very touchy subject, and for good reason. Clan lets Alto in on it. His sister Jessica, who raised him after the death of their parents, was also a sniper, and a damn good one, but she accidentally shot her superior officer with whom she was having an affair with. Due to the fact that the officer broke up with her prior to the incident, the military ruled that she shot him on purpose, and court-martialed her. She ended up taking her own life. Even though Michael may be a guy brimming with confidence, this is something that shakes it. He even tries covering it up by being an asshole.
眠れないのか？おせっかいなら勘弁してくれ、クラン。
お前がジェシカのことで。
多分寝つけないのは一人寝が寂しいせいかもな。とも何？クラン、お前が今夜相手をしてくれるとでも言うのか？マイクロンになったお前に手出したら淫行罪で捕まっちまう。
In this instance, we also begin to see how much Clan cares about him, especially since she grew up with him. Isn't this just cute? On a mission to locate, investigate, and if possible, recover some Vajira eggs, Alto uncovers Beretta again, and the time comes for Michael to make the right shot, and he does. There's also a question that runs through Alto's mind. Everyone in the SMS has their reasons for joining, and at a certain point, Alto begins to wonder if he joined for the right reason.
家から逃げて、父親から逃げて、趣味で戦争をやってるお姫様が逃げているわけじゃない。
And even though he made the right shot and his confidence seems to be coming back to him at this time, Michael still wonders why Jessica took her own life. And maybe he joined the SMS to try to get into her headspace, if at all possible. Maybe he wants to excel where she couldn't.
よく逃げなかったな。よく撃ったな。いつかわかるかもしれない。そうだろう、姉さん。
We cut to our characters in a movie theater, watching a movie version of the events of Macross Zero, featuring the winner of Miss Macross in the role of Sarah Noma, who was the winner of Miss Macross, and Ranka as Mao. What? Yeah, this harkens back to how the in-universe characters dramatize the events of the Macross franchise. Watch the last part of my Macross 2 video for a summary of how Shoji Kawamori regards the Macross canon. Anyway, this is the episode where we see Ranka rise as a star. We cut back a few months, days, sometime earlier. Her agent gets her a role in the movie, which is based on Shin Kudo's biography, at first as an extra.
本当にうまくできるか心配で心配で。
思わざれば花なり、思えば花ならざりき。頭で演じようとすれば必ずどこかに嘘が残る。考えずただひたすらに感じてその役になりきれってことさ。
Alto works PR with Cheryl on the film and elsewhere, and seeing them together makes Ranka worried.
分かってる、すぐ行く。
今のシェリルさんだよね。一緒にいるんだ。
But there are events that will help Ranka get a bigger role. First, there is a Hydra set loose on the ship that causes the original actors to crash. There is also a debate as to what the actual song in the film will be, but the director hears Ranka sing Aimo, and that will be used. Yeah, she goes off on her own to sing the song that the director hears. The Hydra appears and attacks, with Beretta saving both her and Alto. Wait a minute. Why was there a Hydra loose on the ship? Well, Leon has a meeting with a spy to gather information on the mystery Valkyrie and the Vajira in exchange for fold crystals. And if I get the gist of this conversation correctly, if Leon doesn't hold up his end of the deal...
いただいた情報が真実という保証がない限り、何も約束はできませんか。
この船はエデン原産の生物、ヒュドラを移入していたな。
それがどうか。
いずれわかる。バジュラの本当の恐ろしさが。
In the long run, Ranka does play Mal, but only after some soul searching to find the right motivation. She finds it when Cheryl teases Alto again with a kiss. Or was it a tease?
本気にしたやだもう何マジになってるのよ自分で言ってたじゃないキスなんて大したことないって
Oh, I forgot to mention, Alto ends up filling in for the lead actor for the underwater kiss because the lead actor does not want to get his hair wet. What a sissy. So Cheryl is showing him just how simple an on-screen kiss can be. But still, was she teasing him? Or not?
今ならわかる気がするのマオの気持ちが
Anyway, the movie is made and it is sure to be a smash hit. So after a fake-out end credit sequence that mimics Macross Zero, in fact, I'm fairly certain some of these shots are lifted right out of that OVA, we cut back to the theater, and yes, a star is born. Oh, by the way, the Volume 4 Blu-ray I have also includes a reproduction of the ticket for the in-universe movie. It's called Bird Human, because Birdman was already taken. Ranka has become very, very busy of late, with all kinds of appearances and even an upcoming premiere concert.
シンデレラね、まさに
少々トゲのある物言いだね。いずれ12時の鐘が鳴ったら魔法は解ける。
あの子はガラスの靴を見つけたのよ。
君が履き損なった？
履けなかったんじゃなくて履かなかったの。
She's so busy, in fact, that lately her friends have hardly seen her.
早乙女くんのところにも何も連絡ないんですか？メールに書いたんです。早乙女くんの誕生日のこと。
あんた誕生日なの？
きっと早乙女くんには何かって思ったんですけど。
それに一番楽しい時でもあるしね。毎日が新しいことずくめで。
There's talk of a benefit concert on a planet called Gallia 4 that Cheryl is dead set on going to despite showing symptoms of being ill. Now, Gallia 4 is notorious for the Zentradi UN 33rd Marines, who even Clan thinks are a disgrace. Clan mentions that the 33rd Marines are the kind of Zentradi that only reluctantly sided with humans after the end of the First Interstellar War. And they occasionally butt heads with those who willingly side with humans, and it creates problems.
今度、慰問公演が行われることになったの。確かに連中ならそんなことを言い出しかねんな。
大方ごねたのだろう。娯楽を提供しなければ任務を放棄するとかなんとか。セントラーディの恥だ。
Now, Kathy talks with Ozma about this as well, and they start to notice some very weird stuff going on.
ウドラの疫病の件といい、今回の件といい、例の謎のバルキリーについてもだんまりを決め込んでやがる。
Now, around this time, it is Alto's birthday, and his adopted brother Yasuburo, who is a replacement heir to the Saotome family, tries to convince him to come home and see their father, and hopefully return to the acting career.
蘭蔵先生が倒れました。幸い命に別状はなく、マスコミには伏せることができましたが、ご無理がたたっているようで、今も自宅に伏せっていらっしゃいます。もうすぐ誕生日ですね。誕生日にあなたが先生のところに顔を見せれば、感動を解くと。
Yeah, I just wanted to try to set an example, you know?
Yasuburo even makes an interesting observation about Alto, you know, about his wanting to be a pilot, maybe an act in a way.
俺は自分で望んでパイロットになった。嘘はおやめなさい。あの番組を見て、あの映画を見て、私は確信しました。あなたは演じることをやめられない。今もあなたは演じ続けているというのに、親に反発してパイロットを目指す青年という役を、あなたは私がどれだけ精進しても得られない血を受け継いでいるんです。呪いにも似た役者の血を。
Ranka wants to meet Alto on that special hill area to give him a ticket to her first concert. While doing some soul searching, Cheryl, after a bit of teasing,
お前な、人のことどうこう言える格好か？
あんたの胸板と違って、私のは人々に夢と希望を与えるの。
どうすりゃそこまで自信家になれるんだか。
makes him an offer he can't refuse. She makes him an offer to accompany her to Gallia 4, which will give him an opportunity to fly under a real sky. He takes the opportunity, but he never got the message from Ranka.
ああ、ランカちゃん、ごめん。アルトじゃなくて、あいつに頼まれてきたんだ。アルトのやつ、今頃。
あ、長旅よ。しっかりついてきなさい。アルト。
そっちこそ遅れるなよ。
On Gallia 4, we have the Zentradi 33rd UN Marines, who are just looking for an excuse to start a fight. Many are hoping that Cheryl can calm them down.
銀河標準実習生プラス 172.25
あれが欲しい空がある。
They land, but Cheryl collapses because, well, she is very sick. Trouble erupts, and this guy who looks like Kamujin, on the side of the troublemakers, uses his opportunity to take hostages and demand their own ship. Back on Frontier, despite her first concert being underway, Ranka has time to meet up with her friends, but Ai-kun is revealed to Nanase.
見つかったら生態系保護法違反で強制ボランティアですよ。懐かれちゃって。それにこの子、私を慰めてくれたの。アルト君にプレゼントを渡しに行って、一人ぼっちだった時に。ランカさん。
But news of the situation on Gallia 4 reaches the UN government and the SMS, and thanks to numerous fold faults around Gallia 4, it will cause them to be late in delivering assistance. Everybody is understandably worried, but Luca has an idea. He pulls some serious strings to get the SMS a very experimental fold drive that will get them over fold faults and get them there in time. This string pulling, however, gets him in trouble with Leon.
僕が SMS にいるのは、あなた方、新統合軍ではできない、新型機や兵器の実験データ収集と性能評価試験をするため、その裁量においてのことです。
その友情が民間人の少女を事件に巻き込み、さらには LAI と政府の関係も脅かしている。それについては？
それは。
Now, I admit, having this fold drive just lying around to get help in just the right time, it does feel a bit too convenient, I have to be honest. But it does keep the story going, so I guess I can't be too harsh on it. So anyway, Leon mentioned that a civilian was brought into this incident. Who exactly? Well, it's Ranka. As things are starting to escalate badly on Gallia 4, she arrives to sing to the Zentradi troublemakers. The Kamujin-looking guy looks to take her out, but Alto defends her. During the fight with the Kamujin look-alike, some words get to Alto.
戦いこそが俺たちゼントラーディの命、俺たちの血なんだ。
呪いにも似た役者の血を。
そう生きていかずにはいられないんだよ。何が役者の血だ。そんなもの知るかよ。宇
宙は2種類の生き物が生きられるほど広くは。
お前どうしてここまでして。
だって伝えたかったんだもん。ハッピーバースデー、アルトくん。
Wow, that's one hell of a present, huh? Well, Michael was the one who brought her, so Alto is to be the one to take her back to Frontier in time for her concert.
無茶してここまで来たランカちゃんの気持ち、よく考えろよな。ランカ、ありがとな。
血が勝手に来ただけだし。
でも、おかげで助かったよ。最高のプレゼントだったよ。
I like this little moment between Ranka and Alto. It's sweet. Things are going good, but an EMP sort of thing disables the Valkyrie for a temporary period, causing Alto to have to make an emergency landing. After which they discover a Macross-class vessel in the ruins of the planet. I gotta be honest, at first I thought that was the actual Macross, but no, it's back on Earth. Taking a break from the narrative for a second, this is the first major thing I wanted to cover as to why I think this is the best Macross installment. As what I'm covering currently is a television series and plays differently from OVAs and movies in terms of pace and other areas. For now, I will only be comparing this TV series to the original Macross series and the Seventh Circle of Hell. I will cover Macross Delta later. The first thing I wanted to cover was that Frontier has the best pacing and narrative progression since the original series. While there are episodes in both shows where there are shenanigans that happen and take a bit of a break from the main story to elucidate on main characters, or to highlight the overall world more, the story is always moving forward at a pace that keeps you engaged and wanting to see more. There is always genuine drama and tension occurring, and we are always with the characters as they are going through their trials. There's a genuine threat, and we wish to see them overcome it. The principal characters are pretty well developed in both, and we can understand and relate to them. As for the characters in Frontier, I'll elaborate on that later. Even the action and animation for both series are really good. Well, okay, in the original series it fluctuated hilariously, but that one had a hellish production with all sorts of things working against them, so I can't really hold that against them too much. It still got the job done and I was very interested. And Frontier was animated using computers and it looks fantastic as well. Although, I have to admit, Similar to Gundam Seed, I was quite taken aback by the art style as I felt it was a bit too new agey, if that makes sense. But I was very taken in by the narrative, so eventually it wasn't a problem. Look, I don't mind if in movies and such, if effects and animation are done practically or with CGI. Well, as long as it doesn't look truly hideous, and as long as there's actual effort to make it work. If I get involved with the narrative, I'm good to go. Now, I personally consider Frontier better as it doesn't have the issues I feel the original series had. The original series had occasional pacing problems, fluctuating animation quality, use of the better climax too early. Yes, I get why that happened, but still. Overly frustrating character behaviors, namely Hikaru, and the ending left me a bit cold. Now look, I'm not bashing the original series. What I just briefly listed is, for the most part, just my take on the issues that I feel hamper it a bit. It's still an amazing show, and the crew that worked on it still did an amazing job despite the circumstances, and I highly recommend it. Now with all that said, let's compare Frontier to Macross 7. Let's make this quick. All the good things I said about the original series and Frontier, well, here's a great visual representation of what Macross 7 did to all that. Okay, back to the show. It appears that Ranka and Alto are not the only ones that have trouble with the EMP thing. The Zentradi and others do as well.
Macross? それも第一世代型の。
But after that, they are able to go to the ship and starts and stops, as the EMP burst stops the ship on occasions. At one of the stops, they are able to clean up, get water, and even have a chat.
お前はびっくり箱みたいなやつだよな。臆病なんだか大胆なんだか。いい心臓してるぜ、ほんと。
あの頃に比べて、私が少しでも勇気が持てるようになったとしたら、それは、アルト君のおかげだよ。アルト君がいたから。いつも私を守ってくれて、迷った時には背中を押してくれて。だから。
After some talk and an embarrassing moment, Ranka gets taken, and all Alto knows is that it's in the direction of the Macross vessel. During a chat with Cheryl, Michael notices one of the pills she took for her illness, and it looks rather suspicious to him. Eventually, she gets tired of sitting down and wants to go look for Ranka and Alto.
もう熱も下がったし、昨日までの不調が嘘みたいよ。そのなんとかバーストの対策はしたんでしょ？学校で習って、私だって操縦できるんだからね。
女の意地？
私はね、できることがあるのにやらないのは大嫌いなの。
素直じゃないね。
おだまり。
ランカちゃんといい。あいつの周りは頑固な女ばっか。マクロス級4番艦グローバル第117調査船団の旗艦。
今から11年前に起きた第117調査船団の遭難事件を知っているな。ランカはその生き残りだ。
Alto gets into the Macross vessel to investigate and finds that all the data has been erased. Very recently, in fact. Ranka's picture is there too. Interesting. Ranka tells Alto where she is, and both him and Beretta try to get her out. By the way, during the fight, every time a Vajra is hurt or killed, Ranka feels it. During the chaos, though, Alto is blown out of the ship.
Macrossが。
やっとお目覚めね。
On the way up, Beretta attacks again, and Michael has to show up and save his ass. Grace, meanwhile, activates a bomb that will eat the planet.
銀河の妖精の死と先決体の壊滅、憎しみは燃え上がる。コールド通信派は彼らを知るべ。と祈るわね。フロンティアの皆さん。正体不明のコールド担当がして、こちらに待って。
Michael and Cheryl barely escape with their lives in the Vajra folds, and Alto, well, he has to use the full drive in space. As the planet is eaten, Ranka's agent is wondering whether she'll return on time, and Ozma is worried too, as well as Nanase. However, all this worrying and chit-chat on the bridge is cut short by the approaching Vajra. Defensive measures are taken, evac orders are given, and the SMS launches, as well as the regular military.
行け！シモン、ヨハネ、ペテロ！
いつまでも同じ手が通じると思うなよ。このムツキラども！
フロンティア！ねえ、ミシェル、しっかりして！ミシェル！ミシェル！授業を思い出して。大丈夫。 やれるわよ私は。
She tries her best, but the Valkyrie gets destroyed during the escape, and Alto, using the super duper full drive, shows up to help Cheryl, Michael, as well as Luca.
帰りたいよ。みんなのところに。
With the main Vegeta ship firing on Frontier and shots getting through causing a ton of damage, Leon puts pressure on the president to authorize the use of nukes, and they do begin to get used. But before they can be used on the main ship, Alto is allowed to get Ranka and even gets a booster pack to boost toy sales. Come on. That's why it's in the episode and you know it.
絶対無事に帰ってくるのよ。死なないって約束して。
You know I can't promise that.
If you did that, I would make love to you right now.
I promise. I will never die.
やめて。もうやめてよ。伝えたいの。お前は優しいの子寝てるし。
When Ranka sings the song, the Vegeta react and it seems to calm them down somewhat, allowing Alto to get in, but Beretta beats him to it.
ギャラクシーアンタレス小隊所属ブレラスタン少佐より敵母艦内より人質は救出した。
ギャラクシーの生き残り本当なのか
As Grace enters a new body and menacingly mulls over what is happening,
まさかこの娘がリトルクイーンと。
the Macross cannon fires and the battle ends.
の陣形完全に崩れました。
生き残らず殲滅しろ。
なぜ泣く。
わからないよ。どうして。
Now before I get started, I need to discuss the second major aspect of Macross Frontier that makes it the best. It has the best soundtrack of all the franchise. Again, the music is composed by Yoko Kanno, who not only did the background score, but also wrote the music for the songs. That is, unless it's a song from a previous installment, such as Do You Remember Love, which was arranged by her for the show. When it comes to mech shows like Gundam and others, I usually fall into the category of liking the score, but occasionally cringe when it comes to the original songs. In Macross, with the exception of the entirety of 7 and, yeah, 2 as well, both the music and the songs by the idols have been pretty consistently good. But what separates Macross Frontier from the other installments is that just about every piece of music works in this. It is all catchy, consistent with the visuals and the overall tone of the show, well written, and well sung. In some of the previous good installments, there may be one or two songs here and there that may have been at least okay, but the songs in Frontier are consistently good and I can listen to all of them on repeat. And you know, Yoko Kanno deserves credit for making it all fit. Macross Plus may have been her first foray into Macross, as well as her first anime credit from what I understand, but she really soared in Frontier. My second favorite song in the franchise is Lion, you know, from the opening credits. But what's my favorite song in Frontier? Well, that'll be revealed later. Yoko Kanno seems to be mostly known for her work on Cowboy Bebop, and I think that's kind of a shame. Not saying Cowboy Bebop is a bad soundtrack in any way. It's great, but it just seems to me that too many seem to ignore or don't acknowledge her work on such things as Standalone Complex, Escaflowne, Turn A Gundam, Darker Than Black, and others. Oh well, I encourage everyone to seek out her other works as they are great. We continue with episode 15, and part of this functions as a sort of recap in certain spots, with Grace and her conspirators talking about their plans. Now granted, this is not the same as the recap or reused footage episodes of the original series, as those were made to help the animators already behind schedule make up for lost time. Beginning with the Galaxy Ferry Tour, Macross Frontier was chosen as the ending spot for the tour.
主な理由は環境の揺らぎに弱いバイオプラント船であること。そして最近では珍しくインプラントとサイボーグが禁じられていたこと。さらには船団の予定進路が我々の目的に最適だったためである。
It is also revealed that Grace and her conspirators led the Vajira to Frontier. Despite underestimating the SMS combat abilities and LAI technical prowess, namely developing the YF-25 for the SMS and other things, their plans were moving along somewhat smoothly. But other factors came into play, such as Ranka becoming more of an essential entity, and she showed promise when she sang with Cheryl at her concert in the 7th episode, and their voices came through the folds. Also, Cheryl did not die as planned on Gallia 4, which was meant to provoke Frontier, and I suppose by extension the rest of the galaxy, to hate on the Vajira. Speaking of, Cheryl is recovering, and Grace switches out the blood samples to keep the hospital crew from detecting what Grace was giving her. And also, Ranka's rise in popularity somewhat disturbs Cheryl.
ちょっと待って、今仕事を休むのは嫌よ。
今回の一件でますます人気が上がってるものね。
別に私は。
After the previous battle, Frontier is damaged. An island had to be abandoned entirely due to irreparable damage. A lot of air is gone and, well, people are dead. Conservation measures are now in effect. Kathy and Azuma discuss various things that are fishy.
ガンカメラの映像とも照合したけど、ガリア4壊滅以前からフロンティアの近くに出没していたのと同じ機体なの。
いくら今回の件で昇進したからってオーナーのビルダー氏から直々に呼び出しがかかるってのは
な。あいにくだけど父はグラス大統領はこの件には絡んでないわ。私も気になっていてちょっと探りを入れてみたんだけどね。
Alto and Ranka pay Cheryl a visit, and what started off as a kind of friendly visit turns into a kind of competition for Alto's attention, as both of them sing in front of him as a response to the news showing footage of Ranka singing in a mall and on Gallia 4.
初々しくて夢見る乙女って感じで。
でも助けてくれたんだよね、アルトくん。あれ、アルトくんだよね。あの紙飛行機、いつもありがとね、アルトくん。
ライブの時も、こないだの戦いの時も、ありがとう、アルト。
さよならライブの先頭でやられそうになった時、聞こえたような気がしたんだ。お前たちの歌声が。
すごいよ、アルトくん。
Let me know what you want, I will give you。
シェリルさん？
乗っかっちゃってる恋でももう一回なんてないからエキサイティング。
シェリル大丈夫か？
Alto gets called away to meet the owner of SMS, Richard Bearda, and Ranka gets called to meet the president, or, rather Leon and Grace to use Aimo against the Vajira.
リチャード・ビルがあの少年を取り込もうとしているのか。
でも事態の推移に深く関わってきたし、ランカリーとシェリル・ノーム・ビルラ
いるよね、時々時代に見られたような人間って。
これで舞台も役者も揃ったみたいね。
これが真の始まりだ。
プロトカルチャー50万年の歴史でさえ成し得なかった夢への。
While on a mission to capture Vajira remains, Alto remembers his chat with Mr. Bearda.
僕はね、断層で隔てられた銀河を一つにしたいんだよ。10万光年の星々を結び、より早くより近くあまねく銀河を我らの世界に。可能なんだよ。僕らプロトカルチャーの子供たちにもたらされた福音、バジュラのおかげでね。
Ranka is back at school with everyone, but she has to bring the T-800 with her, which Alto is none too happy with. By the way, Ranka feels bad about leaving her old manager. I would be too. She hears a new version of Aimo to be sung to the Vajira, and at the time doesn't have it in her to really sing it.
お前の歌は宇宙を感じさせる。それも突き放す宇宙じゃない。包むような銀河の渦がそのまま形になった。あまりうまい例えが見つからないんだ。
あの時グリフィスパークで会ったの。どうしてあの歌を？
それは極秘事項だ。
Alto sees Cheryl in the park and she's still in bad shape, so he takes her to his SMS quarters when she reviews his hospital care and hotels.
まったく倒れてるお前を SMS に運び込むのにどれだけ苦労したと思ってるんだ。
そうだったの。へえ、心配してくれたんだ。
当然だろう。あ、この石。
ちょっとやだ、アルト。
女を連れ込むときはドアにハンカチ挟んどく約束だろ。
After some shenanigans, Alto and Michael get orders to assist in an experiment to sing the new Aimo to the Vajira. Bearda more or less oversees it. Cheryl demands to view it as well, as she was in the room with Alto and Michael when orders were given, and for some reason the captain just lets her do it. Okay.
その調子よ。
この歌。
バジラの活動が不規則に。攻撃が止まりました。
それを言うならバサラ様でしょう。
If any song from Firebomber were directly sung to the Vajira, they would go into a blood frenzy and murder all humans in Zentradi everywhere to rid themselves of that dreadful music. Alto does not like where this whole thing is going. Ranka has doubts, and I'm certain Cheryl's feelings of being replaced and forgotten are growing stronger. Speaking of Firebomber from before, while prepping to do his own investigative work, Ozma shows his bad taste in music while remembering the early times with Ranka.
ここが今日から俺たちの家だ。素敵なお家だろ。家具とか買い揃えなきゃな。なんかはどんなのがいい？兄ちゃんに何でも言えよ。
Even to how she got her memory back after eating a bad pineapple cake.
どうだ？
美味しくない。全然美味しくないよ、お兄ちゃん。
I should try that with Hannah if she ever gets amnesia.
What's that supposed to mean?
Nothing. Michael remembers the pill that he got on Gallia 4 and asks Clan to take it to a special pharmacy to have it looked at. They even see Luca being taken into a limo where he is taken to see Leon about fold crystals. Sorry, fold quartz. Okay, fold quartz as they're actually called. They're not called fold crystals. They look like crystals, that's why I called them fold crystals, but they're actually called fold quartz. Anyway, apparently fold quartz is a substance by purifying fold ore, which I'm assuming is the thing that comes out of fold teleportations like these right here. Maybe it's the residue that comes from them. I don't know. Basically, the fold quartz are the things that allow the Vajra to travel across fold faults without time lag. Needless to say, they are incredibly valuable to the UN and are needed to advance communications and space travel. Speaking of, Alto in the previous episode saw that Cheryl has a necklace that contains a fold quartz. Since those are the substances that the Vajra use to travel across fold faults and such, that is how Alto was able to hear Cheryl and Ranka at the time where he had to rescue Luca. It shows that voices can even travel across folds too. That will make more sense a little bit later.
ビルラ氏はそもそも運輸業で名を成した人物です。そんな氏がこれを手に入れれば考えることは一つでしょう。全銀河レベルで物流と通信を独占する。それは実質銀河を支配することに等しくなる。
Oh, that isn't going to be important later. Ozma tries to go investigate the Vajra corpses and runs into Barrera, and surprisingly they reach a stalemate.
貴様らは何を企んでる？なぜランカの歌を？
必要だからだ。
11年前とは違う。今の俺たちの力でも十分ランカを守れる。
今はな。
The Vajra arrive, and this battle is another experiment to show the UN and such that the Vajra can adapt to repeated weapon use and battle tactics, and that they need Ranka's song in order to win.
バジラは常に進化し続ける生物だ。5体の受けた損傷情報は瞬く間に群れ全体に蓄積され、新たな個体にフィードバックされる。
But Ozma, being the awesome big brother, leads the way, and he, along with his subordinates, fight off the Vajra with blades. Ozma later sits with Kathy at Ranka's concert, and in a callback to the original series, passes out while Kathy talks about making a pineapple cake. He dodged a bullet. If she was talking about making a pineapple salad, he'd be a goner. Seriously, I'm glad they didn't kill him off, and hell, even the characters kind of break the fourth wall in talking about this.
死んでたら最高に感動的だったんだけどね。
本当よ。
While this is going on, we see Vajra eggs start to hatch very slowly in the ship. Holy crap. Grace and Cheryl meet at the hospital, and Grace just flat out tells her she's not needed anymore.
なぜランカのマネージャーになったの？なぜあの子の歌はバジラに通じるの？なぜ私じゃなくあの子なのよ。
どれだけ言葉を飾っても、あなたの本質は所詮アイドル。
私自身の力でここまで来たわ。
だってもしあの時私があなたを拾わなければ、あなたは誰にも知られぬままギャラクシーのスラムで今でもゴミにまみれていたはず。でもそれもおしまい。シェリル・ノームはもう死ぬのよ。煽ってなんかいないの。今までは発症しなかっただけ。歌手としてだけじゃない。文字通りあなたは死ぬのよ、シェリル。
The president wants to execute a long-distance fold, which he is hoping will put distance between them and the Vajra. This isn't to Leon's liking, and to everyone else it seems fishy. We even get some news as to what the pill Michael found is. It is to keep the V-type infection inside Cheryl at bay. Oh, sorry, I should explain. V-type infection comes from a microbe that's part of the Vegeta. It's what allows the Vegeta to transmit and receive fold waves through space. But creatures such as humans who are infected with the V-type virus could die should the infection spread to the brain. We'll get back to that later.
この病気は体液血液感染型。よほどのことがない限り人にはうつらないはずだが。コスモネイチャー2047年11月号。論文の執筆者は第117調査船団プロジェクトリーダードクターマオノーム共同研究者ランシェメイトグレイス・オコナーだと。この子供まさかシェリル。シェリル。
アルトには言わないで。
でも
お願い。
なあミシェル、本当にアルトに言わなくていいのか。私だって女だからわかる。
Okay, Michael won't tell Alto, but...
理由は言えない。だがとにかく行け。さもないと一生後悔するぞ。
While Alto is searching for Cheryl, Cheryl encounters news reports on a big TV screen in the city on Ranka, and she starts to have a pity party. Actually, she is picked up by Ranzaburo, you know, Alto's brother, and she's taken to Saltome Manor. The Vegeta show up and panic starts. Everything but the Macross cannons and Beretta's gun are now useless against the Vegeta, and they can't go into fold now and risk the Vegeta following them. But of course, Ranka shows up to distract them and fold procedures begin. They fire the Macross cannon from Battle Frontier, but Ranka feels the pain of the Vegeta being killed. But the people of Frontier are not out of the woods. Not by a long shot, as the aforementioned Vegeta eggs are looking to hatch while the populace celebrates prematurely. Speaking of the celebration, Ranka skips out on the parade as Aikun has run away and she wants to find it. Even Beretta helps her out, and they just decide to make a day of it. Speaking of making a day of it, Kathy and Azuma pretend date when they're actually doing investigative work. Alto visits Cheryl at his family home that he swore never to return to, and sees her wearing his mom's kimono. Cheryl has a pity party where she apparently decides to quit singing, which is something that Alto is not expecting to hear from her.
お前言ってたよな。自分は幸運だけであそこまで行ったんじゃない。
あの頃は私が私自身に嘘をついてたの。
ふざけんなよ。お前は銀河の妖精シェリルノームじゃなかったのかよ。
私はシェリルノームよ。歌おうが歌わまいが私は。
今日見星でランカのライブがある。必ず来い。
Meanwhile, Leon and Grace check out a new type of ammo against the Vegeta.
フォールドクォーツの波動特性を解析して作った新型弾。あのディメンションイーターを汎用小型化したものよ。
これならまたしばらくバジラに通用しそうですね。量産は
時間はかかるわ。
You know, it occurred to me that with the whole thing of the Vegeta adapting to tactics and weapons, they're kind of similar to the Borg from Star Trek The Next Generation, at least in the adapting part. We know that Leon has plans in place to take out the president during the concert at the school. Kathy and Azuma find out what he intends to do, and they go to confront him. The hunt for Aikun will have to be paused, but before going to the school, Beretta asks what she sings for.
最近のお前は歌っていても楽しそうじゃない。
私、みんなに伝えたいって。そう思ってた。ずっと思い込んでた。でも本当は確かめなくちゃ。
Oh, and in case you haven't guessed from the not in any way subtle hints, they're siblings. The concert goes underway, and while Ranka is singing, she takes this as a clue that Alto loves her romantically, which is going to complicate things. And Michael really gets on him about it, and in the process lets it slip as to why he doesn't commit to relationships.
鈍いのもいい加減に罪だぜ。そろそろ答え出せよな。この歌もさっきの歌もランカちゃんがお前に向けてお前のためだけに歌っているんだ。シェリルもだ。お前みたいな三つ股四つ股野郎に女のことで説教されるとはな。人間なんざいつ死んじまうかわからない。特に俺たちはパイロットだからな。本気になるのもさせるのもほっかなくてな。
While all that is going on, Luca sees a picture that Nanase drew of Aikun, as earlier she wanted his help to find it. And this sets off a huge alarm for him. While Kathy and Azuma confront Leon, Ranka rushes to meet Alto.
言うんだ。私、伝えなきゃ。私の気持ち。
いいのか悪いのか、よくわからないけどな。
みんな、誰かを好きでいたいんだ。
お前はどうなんだ、ミシェル。お前の恋はどこにある？
また歌いたくなったな。
言ったでしょ。私はもういいの。シェリル・ノームはもう。
お前が歌を捨てられるはずがない。お前の歌があんなにたくさんの人間に届くもんかよ。
Now, sadly, coming upon this, embarrassment ensues and Ranka feels like a fool. But there's no time to be sad as the Vajra have woken up and all hell breaks loose. While this puts Leon's initial assassination attempts to waste, and although Kathy and Azuma escape from him, Leon will use the chaos to gain power.
これはあなたの仕業ですか？
いいえ、可能性は検討していたけど、私にもイレギュラーの事態よ。大統領はまだご存命の様子。お困りなら手を貸しましょうか。
結構。この混乱は天の廃材だ。行くぞ。
After some time trying to convince the emotionally distraught Ranka to sing, complete with Cheryl slapping some sense into her,
歌うのに気持ちがいるのはよくわかる。でも、あなたはプロなのよ。
Ranka sings the battle IMO song, but it just makes the Vajra more violent, probably responding to her distress.
まるで11年前のこのサイズには銃が通用するのが救いか。
とにかく SMS の基地に行こう。あそこに行けば武器もある。
SMS に行けばカナリアさんの K2 機から下ろしたゴールドウェーブアンプもあります。あれを使えばきっと。
Nanase gets hurt during the battle and Cheryl will take her to a shelter. Meanwhile, the SMS is busy with all the Vajra defolding outside Frontier. The ones inside the ship called for reinforcements.
おお、君か。政府機能は全てバトルフロンティアに移した。
これからは私、レオン三島にお任せを。
お父様。
Now, for just a moment, I'm going to talk about the third major reason why Macross Frontier is the best. I know I kind of mentioned a part of this earlier in part 2, but this series has such damn good characters and probably the best since the original series. Throughout these videos on Macross Frontier, I've done my best to show off the character interactions, as they can describe themselves better than I can write words for. While there are certainly characters that receive more attention than others, Frontier is one of those few shows that I can watch and I can really get what a character is about, and in some cases I really understand what motivates them. From Alto wanting to fly in a real sky, Ranka singing out of love for Alto, Cheryl being self-motivated and being attracted to Alto because he doesn't behave like her other male fans and such, or even Michael wanting to find out what caused his sister to do what she did, as well as plenty of others to mention. There's just a lot going on here that I really like, and yes, it is definitely melodramatic, which is fairly common in Japanese entertainment from what I've seen personally, but the melodrama works, because it doesn't get too drawn out like soap operas with absurd storylines or like crap on primetime dramas or heck even stuff on the Lifetime channel.
We now return to Meredith Baxter in Raped by a Clown.
It was awful. He made me do things. Awful things.
What kinds of things?
I don't even want to talk about it.
The series balances the melodrama with genuine fun and moments of badassery from the characters, namely Azuma. And the characters show real growth, and it's all done in the 26-episode time span and feels far more believable than many series, either live action or animation, that go on for multiple seasons. Now, it's very important for all that to work because what happens in this episode? Well, while trying to get the SMS to get better gear to mount a better offensive, Clan gets prepared to become Zentradi-sized, but it is here that she bears her soul to Michael.
確かにお前は臆病者だ。私はお前が好きだ、ミシェル。
こんな時に何を。
バカ、こんな時だからだ。死ぬのが怖くて恋ができるか。
While she is getting prepared, a Vajra tries to attack and Michael defends her to the death. Literally. I kind of pride myself in being able to detect in shows or movies what will happen next, and I can safely say that I, along with many others, did not see Michael's death coming. We see many scenes of Clan trying to get Michael to open up about his feelings, or even as to how she feels in certain circumstances. And even earlier, him admitting to Alto that he won't commit to relationships due to a fear of death. The show laid out various clues to the tragic events, and I guess I was so entranced by the show and following all the events going on that I just didn't catch it. Even cutting back to Kathy mourning her father adds to the tragedy of it all. And all of it accompanied by the song Diamond Crevasse, sung by Cheryl in an effort to calm down the survivors in a shelter. Remember when Michael said this in reference to Ozma?
死んでたら最高に感動的だったんだけどね。
Well, man, your death is epically tragic. Further adding to the tragedy that he's only able to say I love you at the point of death. But on the whole, the setup is very well done, the payoff works incredibly well, and this is how you play with audience expectations. You hear that, Ryan Johnson? The Vajra attack continues, Clan suits up to kick some ass, while Alto and Luca go to where Ranka can sing safely. Ozma and Kathy rush to try to stop Leon from taking control, but it's too late.
大統領はまだなのか。バトルフロンティアを出港させろ。11分前、大統領の死亡が確認されました。
While Battle Frontier moves out to assist SMS, Alto and company get to Island 3 where they find a fold shell to kill the Vajra. It's called Little Girl. Little Girl? Maybe it's a jab at Little Boy, one of the bombs that was dropped on Japan. Anyway, Luca intends to use this against the Vajra and wants to use Ranka as bait.
半径50キロの空間を切り取って食い尽くす。
船団ごと飲み込んじまうじゃないか。
バジラをどこか一箇所に集め爆発させる。船だってボロボロ、生態系だってむちゃくちゃだ。これ以上被害を受けたらフロンティアはおしまいなんです。
生き残るのが連中か俺たちか。多分俺たちはそういう瀬戸際にいる。
歌うよ、私。
The plan is they will sacrifice Island 3, the Zentradi farming area place. They would use Ranka singing to lure the Vajra there and set off the fold shell. Alto doesn't like this plan, but has to do it. Beretta tries to comfort her in his own way.
歌いたくないなら歌わなくていいんだぞ、ランカ。
どうしてそんなこと言う？
歌はお前の心だ。それはお前だけのものだから。
伝えたかった。たった一人の人。その人には届かなかった歌だけど、これがそのたった一人の望みだから。愛も愛もねてるし、おいで。私はここだよ。
The plan succeeds, but it all comes at a great cost. As Luca explained earlier,
船だってボロボロ、生態系だってむちゃくちゃだ。
On top of that, Michael is dead, the president's dead, lots of people are dead, there's lots of hurt all around. Oh, poor Clan. So much so that at a memorial service held by Leon, Ranka can't sing and runs away. She meets Aikun, who has grown up and evolves into an actual Vajra. Ranka calls Alto to her special place to come and talk to her, and we learn actually a little bit more as to why he wanted to fly.
俺のお袋は体が弱くて、いつも空ばかり見てる人だった。俺も一緒に見てて、そんな時お袋が言ったんだ。本物の空が見たいって。青く果てしなく続く水平線と白い雲、そんな本物の自由な空。おとぎ話みたいだったよ。この船で生まれた俺にとっては。
素敵だね。
ありがとう、ランカ。
アルト君。
But Aikun shows up to spoil the fun. Ranka sets out on a journey to the Vajra and to figure out her past.
アルト君と行きたかった。ずっと一緒にいたかったよ。さよなら。大好きでした。
ランカ！いくら！ランカ！
そして波中。なんだ？
Damn, this series rocks. Beretta's departure with Ranka is surprising to even Grace. But Leon doesn't have time to think about all that right now, as situations are dire on Frontier as they only have 3 months of supplies due to the extensive damage. Alto is training new recruits against live Vajra, as well as testing new weapons against them. In a follow-up conversation with Luca, he's still in shock about Ranka, and Nanase is still in a coma.
なんて言えばいいんです。ランカさんのこと。あなたの大好きだったランカさんは僕らを裏切ってバジラを逃がすために行ってしまったなんて。
簡単な話さ。七瀬が目覚める前に型をつけてあいつを連れ戻せばいい。
And there's even rumors going around that Cheryl is retiring. There's just no good news, is there? But when she sings, Luca detects a faint fold wave. Bobby finds Ozuma and Kathy, and Ozuma lets SMS know about the situation.
暗殺だと。はい。首謀者は三島です。
消失してしまいましたが、父の亡骸に誓って事実です。オズマ、これを。ランカからだ。それを。11年前の真実を確かめに行くと書いてある。
The captain tells him that the SMS will be disbanded and incorporated into the UN. He got this information from Mr. Birra, and he says that everyone has to choose what they will do right now of their own accord. While Cheryl is informed of the results of her song, Alto and Clan chat. Cheryl is able to send out some fold waves as a result of her V-type infection. The V-type is found in Vajra blood, and infection comes from blood or bodily fluids. It can be cured in early stages made by a serum made from the Vajra, but after that it's too late. The virus begins to infect the brain and the subject dies. And Alto hears about this from Clan.
今のあなたの声は微弱なホールド波を発しています。
ランカさんほど強力ではありませんが、おそらくそのイヤリング、フォールドクォーツでできたそのイヤリングが増幅してくれたんでしょう。
ですから歌ってくれますね。我々人類のために。
As Ranka and Beretta try to find the Vajra homeworld, with help from Aikun, everyone in SMS gets Kathy's message. But before Alto can see the message, he goes to see Cheryl and is clearly upset about her possibly dying.
Well, who didn't see that coming?
して笑わなくていい。歌わなくていいんだ。シェリル。
私にはもう歌しかないの。それだけが私の生きた証なのよ。怖いの。私はシェリルとして生きるって決めたのに。
お前が歌うなら、その最後の瞬間まで俺はお前のそばにいる。
ハルト、私に勇気をちょうだい。
Meanwhile, Mishima announces a total war to wipe out the Vajra. Lots of personnel from the SMS side with the captain, as Mishima's actions are, well, fishy. You know, them leaving right here reminds me of stealing the Enterprise from Star Trek 3.
やはり動き出しました。有罪確定か。
However, Luca, Alto, and Clan stayed behind.
大統領命令によりあなた方に警告します。直ちに艦を戻してください。
止めだけ止めてみろよ。そんな間に合わせの改造をした機体で俺に勝てるつもりならな。
なんでだよ。どうしてあんたは。
相変わらず融通の機関集めだから巻き込めないんだよお前は。気に食わんトップのために血を流すのは趣味じゃなくてな。
俺の大事な女たちを守るんだ。これがベストなやり方なのさ。早乙女アルト、お前の翼は何のためにある。腕を上げたな。
オズマ、戻って。
了解、アルト。ダンカは自分の道を選んだ。俺も俺自身の道を選ぶ。お前はどこへ行く。
Ranka and Beretta eventually find the Vajra homeworld. Despite Mishima's actions to get rid of Grace, she fights off the assassins, and she is ecstatic about finding the Vajra homeworld.
バジュラの真の女王の住まう星、私たちの宝島に。
So now I need to talk about the fourth reason as to why Macross Frontier is the best Macross entry. And the reason's very simple. It's just so damn fun. The combination of action, flight choreography, and music all combined sometimes to near perfection to create an energetic, engaging, and entertaining experience. Even when there's a ton of dramatic tension, comedy, or even genuine tragedy, it still remains continually watchable, and that is something that can be said across all the installments of Macross. Well, okay, not 2, and especially not 7. But admittedly, none of that would matter if the vocal performances didn't work, and they are excellent. and if the singers aren't great, which they are, and if the songs didn't match, which they do. And honestly, this is really the most engaged I've ever been in a Macross entry ever. We begin episode 23 with a brief glimpse into Ranka's past.
あなたはまさかそのために彼らを犠牲にしようというの？私のインプラントネットワーク理論とバジュラのゼロタイムフォールド通信を組み合わせれば世界を変えられるのよ。でもわからないわランシェ。そんな病気になってまでなぜあれをかばうの？
ママたちどうしたのかな？
On Frontier, oxygen is becoming polluted and low enough where people have to wear masks, and 2 more islands have to be abandoned. While government officials argue over what to do, Mishima has a plan. Alto, when not doing his duties for the UN, is currently living with Cheryl, and, you know, I gotta say, in this episode, I'm not used to seeing Cheryl this needy. She's usually so independent and assertive. Well, I guess everybody has a different reaction if they learn they're going to die eventually, and in her case, rather quickly. She's willing to throw herself away to be useful. That's not like her, and I don't like that. While traveling to the Vajra planet, they encounter a lot of guards. Ranka's song temporarily stops them, but while she is singing, the song is detected by SMS and the UN, which means that everybody now knows where the planet is. While trying to hide from an additional Vajra assault, we get more info on Burera, and why he wants to help Ranka.
記憶のないサイボーグにとって命令は絶対。だがお前の歌を聴いたとき、俺の中に何かが溢れた。戦闘マシンであるはずの俺に。
もう一度聞いてもいい？あの曲のこと。
あれは記憶だ。空っぽな俺の中に残されていた唯一の。
After their talk, they're chased by the Vajra again, and she tries to go to Aikun, but is taken, and she finally realizes who her brother is.
お兄ちゃん。
よくやったわ、ブレラ。トレーサーを切ったくらいじゃあなたと私のつながりは切れない。妹さんとの逃避行は楽しかった？
妹だとランカが。
Well, who didn't see that coming?
12時の鐘が鳴るわ。
Meanwhile, Mr. Birda and Mishima talk to Alto, and Mishima is clearly manipulating him. Mishima explains to Alto that the Vajra don't have a brain, or rather they communicate using a network of intestinal bacteria with fold waves.
一つの群れ、一つの種族で一個の生物のように振る舞うのさ。
これなら言語、そもそも他者とのコミュニケーションすら不要だ。フォールド派によるネットワーク生物、それがバジラなのだよ。
So how does Ranka fit into all this? Her mother was infected with the virus while she was pregnant with Ranka, so the V-type virus remained in her intestines and never went to her brain. She's pretty much immune to them, you could say. And that is why her singing affected the Vajra, and that's why she is sometimes called by Grace the Little Queen. Her singing triggered the intestinal bacteria, and that is how she was able to communicate with the Vajra, even if she didn't know she was doing it. You know, I kind of like the whole thing with the Vajra intestinal fold wave thing. It kind of links back to how in real life how there's a mind-gut connection. Anyway, Luca continues to talk to Cheryl. She's not taking her medicine anymore, because by not taking it, her fold waves will become stronger. The pills were blocking the progress of the virus to the brain, and even if she were to continue taking them, they're becoming more and more ineffective. Ranka has been taken to the Vajra homeworld, where she has a flashback to when everything went to shit on, I believe, Gallia 4. Okay, admittedly, I was initially confused by this. I don't know why, but I thought the disaster happened on another planet. I don't know, seeing the Macross vessel there on Gallia 4 should have tipped me off, but first time I watched it, it didn't. The entire disaster happened on and around the planet Gallia 4, so I'm assuming that once the attack and all the chaos around it subsided, and once the Vajra were thought to have left the planet, for reasons I'm not sure, they put military installations back on there again. I would like to know who thought putting military facilities on there again was a safe bet. But hey, at least they didn't put civilians on there again and have them colonize it. The last time something like that happened, we got the movie Aliens. Oof. Ooh, and I found out something interesting while I was editing this video. Apparently in a Macross Frontier novelization, apparently there was a company called the Critical Path Organization, which financed the 117th Research Fleet. It was headed by a man named Manfred Brando, who was incredibly displeased at the loss of the fleet and all the research. Apparently in the press, the fleet's destruction was reported to have been caused by a fold error, which caused the deaths of a ton of people. Oh, and on a side note, you know that Ozma is in SMS, right? He used to work for the UN, but he was dishonorably discharged after he beat up Brando after taking issue with how the interrogation of Ranka went.
みんな私のせいで
深淵への扉が開く。
なんかあれ
クソ虫ども。
いいかなんか誰にも言っちゃダメだぞ。お前の歌があいつらを呼んだこと。
私のせいなんだ。
みんなあんたのせい。償う方法はあるわ。心と体を開いてあなたのすべてをさらけ出すのよ。
Back on Frontier, Clan then asks Alto about what he will do about Ranka.
ランカがバジラの道具にされるなら、あいつの歌が俺たちを滅ぼそうとするなら、俺はランカを殺す。
それがお前の愛か。
分かっていたことよ。でも今だけ、もう少しだけ。
I personally don't think Alto loves Ranka romantically. I really do think it's more of a big brother little sister relationship. The way he speaks and behaves, and the overall chemistry of their interactions just doesn't signal romance to me. Mishima sees the Vajra planet as habitable and will attack it to claim it.
まもなく30光年の短距離ホールドが行われます。
ついに来たな。
あの星こそ我らの約束の地だ。聖なる戦いを始めよう。
The SMS investigates the Gallia 4 wreckage and what's left of the Macross vessel, and wow, that is very lucky that that thing survived, or at least that part of it. I'm usually more than a little forgiving of contrivances in this franchise, but this right here, I don't know, this is pushing it a little too far. A planet eater just consumed an entire planet. Well, a huge chunk of it at any rate. And you expect me to believe that this portion of it survived? The portion that has all the evidence that the SMS needs? Yeah, that's really damn convenient. They find that the first reports of the Vajra was in 2040, and then later in 2048, when the 117th Investigation Fleet was destroyed by the Vajra. Mao Nome, yes, that Mao Nome, was in charge of the fleet. They also find evidence of research of a superdimensional network with full quartz and implant tech written by Grace.
本名で堂々とフロンティアに乗り込んできやがって。くそ、気づいていれば。
The SMS discusses this network and it's very bad.
これが論文から推定される銀河規模の完全リアルタイムインプラントネットワークの概念図です。
ゴールドクォーツをインプラントのコアとして使用すれば銀河の端と端でも理論上タイムラグは起こりませんから。
実現すれば銀河規模の超並列思考ネットワークになるわ。
銀河を一つに、その理想だけは聞こえがいいけど、
結節点となるターミナルには他の端末に対する優位性があります。それをさらに集約すれば最終的にはこの中央の一点が他に対する完全な上位存在になります。
いくら便利だとは言っても全人類をインプラント化するなんて不可能。
そのための馬車、逆らう者には死を、受け入れる者には霊族を。
Since the Vajra can adapt to weapons and leap across fold faults, this is all very grim news. So Ranka will be used by Grace to control the Vajra since she is the little queen. Frontier arrives near the Vajra home and the UN get prepared to attack. And people get mentally prepared for battle in their own way. Alto goes to see Cheryl for a romantic-like goodbye. This kind of plays out weird. She says she wants to end their little shacking up, but then they go for this romantic kiss, and it seems that they still want to be together. Look, I'm no expert on relationships.
Well, who didn't see that?
Shut up. Maybe somebody can explain this to me in the comments. I love how this scene looks, by the way. It reminds me of the ending to The Empire Strikes Back. You know, the only Star Wars movie I consider a legitimately great film. Oh yes, I said it. I'm not taking it back.
言わないで。今言われたらそれがどんな言葉でもきっと私は歌えなくなる。何も言わないで。全部終わったら続きを聞くわ。だからアルト、ランカちゃんを助けなさい。それができたら続きを聞いてあげる。覚えておきなさい。こんないい女めったにいないんだからね。
The operation begins with some bitchin' music.
私の歌を聴けー！
アルトさんが。
それがお前の舞か。虫どもの動きは？
弁慶とおぼしき動きは認められません。
いけるいけるぞ。
And it seems to look like it's going well. But of course, things start to go to hell. As the UN charges in, Ranka is pushed to sing Do You Remember Love to strengthen the Vajra. This all looks very cool, and Cheryl's song of course is being overrun. I gotta say, the use of Do You Remember Love in this dire situation is really effective, especially with how it's written for this scene.
気を取り戻してる。なんか
ゴールドウェーブが干渉しています。バシャラ軍戦力増大。
やはり彼女は人類を裏切ったのか。
バシャラの攻撃が。
星の守り手にこれ以上ふさわしい歌はないわね。
Beretta works to keep Alto from Ranka, and it seems that it's curtains for Alto, as Cheryl observes in horror. It also looks like it's over for the UN, but the SMS arrived to help, and the gang is all back together. And as for Alto, he's alive. He bailed out and hid among the wreckage. Oh, no interruption? Okay, let's move on. Anyway,
Well, who didn't see that coming?
我々は帰ってきた。ギャラクシーの野望を、グレイス・オコナーとそれに組みする者たちの野望を潰すために。
俺は見た。あいつの正体。あれはなんかじゃない。あのまやかしを撃て。
バトルギャラクシー。ゴジラにやられたはずでは。
覚悟なさい、レオン。
Galaxy sends out a crap ton of Ghost V9s, the same kind of drone spacecraft, or rather similar to the one that Goldgoa Bowman took out in Macross Plus. This bit is still awesome, by the way. Alto has his Valkyrie back, finally, and asks Cheryl for help to get back in action to help Ranka, with Clan using Michael's sniper unit. Luca even undoes the restraints on his drones.
聞こえるか、俺の声が、セイルの歌が。目を覚ませランカ、本当の歌を取り戻すんだ。
Alto is able to reach Ranka, but Grace uses the Vajra Queen to connect to the network, and the Vajra becomes stronger via fold waves. We also get some implications that protoculture were inspired by the Vajra in various different ways, especially with the Birdman from Macross Zero. Okay, that's interesting. I never made that connection when I watched Macross Frontier after watching Macross Zero. After watching this show again for this video series, this is the first time I ever made that connection. Thank you, Frontier. I learn new things every day. Grace sends invasion forces to different places, both new and familiar. Things seem bleak, but Alto hears Ranka's song in Macross Galaxy. Beretta being freed from Grace's control. Oh, I forgot to mention, when the SMS showed up, Beretta's little mind crystal thing broke, and that's why he's now free. Anyway, Beretta inspires her to sing.
悲しみも怒りも喜びも思いのすべてを歌に乗せて、そう、今度こそこの戦いを止めてみせる。それが俺たち兄弟の償い。
この歌なんか敵に回ったのではなかったのか。
わかりません。ですがバジュラクイーンからのフォールド波にさえ拮抗して広がっていきます。
やめて、私の仕事は終わった。
バカ！思い出して、シェリルさんがいたから私は止めたの。シェリルさんが力をくれたからアルト君も止めたの。
お前言ったろ、絶対に諦めないって。俺は諦めてないぜ。だからお前たちが 俺の翼だ!
Also, Ranka is able to send Cheryl's V-type infection to her intestines. Okay. The three team up and we get a bitchin' climax with a song that combines all kinds of different songs from Macross, such as My Boyfriend is a Pilot, Lion, Do You Remember Love, and others.
ギャラクシーがアジアの女王を乗っ取ったプレイスを行うたちこそが我が翼に誇りを持つ者よ。我と共に進め。
無駄なあがきを。
During the battle, the Vajra save Island 1 from a direct hit.
Vajra にもちゃんと気持ちがあるの。よく違ってて、人間がなんでこんなにバラバラでみんなが違うことをしているのかいなかった。だからバジラは得体の知れない人類からコールド波の通じる私を助け出そうとしてくれてたの。私とは違うシェリルさんの歌声を感じることで私たちが一人一人違うんだってなければ分かり合えない生き物なんだってやっと分かってくれたの。抱きしめて銀河の果てまで。
With Ranka safely delivered to Frontier, Alto is rearmed and makes his way to Vajra Queen. With some difficulties along the way, Alto is handed Michael's sniper rifle and delivers the final blow to Grace. With all that, the invading Vajra and all those different places go home, and Frontier lands on a new world.
ねえ、バジラがコミュニケーションする必要のない生き物なら、この歌何だったのかしらね。
恋の歌よ。バジュラが何万年、何億年かに一度、他の銀河に住む群れと出会い、交配するために呼びかける恋の歌よ。愛も、あなた、あなた。
That's a nice little callback to Do You Remember Love? I don't mind callbacks like that. It works its way naturally into the story and it doesn't feel forced, unlike a lot of the things we get today. It ends with Ranka and Cheryl in competition for Alto.
これが空。シェリルとランカが開いてくれた。
私、負けません。歌も、恋も。
受けて立つわ。
シェリルさん、ここから始まるんだね。
So that was the Macross Frontier TV series, and wait, I can't sum it up just yet. We haven't talked about the movies yet. Yes, I'm going to be getting to the Macross Frontier movies, The False Songstress and Wings of Goodbye. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of a preview. If I'm being honest, I think I like the movies just a little bit more than the TV series. Don't worry, we'll find out why when we get to the movies.